All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Paris pod. I think that we've settled on the Paris pod. Kyle, friend, you know that throughout the Olympic process, I was doing the road to Paris.
Yep.
Me and Brian Cook decided that the road is here. We're here in Paris.
We have arrived.
So we have arrived. So now we're calling this the Paris pod now.
I like it.
And I've had a great time because it's been fun to bring people on. Brought on Matt Prosser for indoor. Brian Cook did all the true volley stuff. And now got the Beach Access Volleyball World crew with Kyle Friend.
Gang's here.
Stoked to have you, buddy.
Let's go. So fired up.
Yeah, I'm fired up. So we are, just to give everyone an update, we are recording this on Thursday, August 1st. Kristen Nuss and Taryn Cloth, they just beat China after a rain delay. Well done, ladies. American women are now 5-0. Only dropped one set so far. So this one, we're going to cover the women in an ensuing video. This one is on the men. Now, before we get into all the records and standings and giving people the update, Kyle, I just want to know, what have you thought of these Olympics so far?
Yeah, I think the venue looks like the best venue that I've ever seen, actually. And hearing from a lot of the athletes who are getting interviewed, and a lot of their comments are, this is the best venue they've ever played. And when you're watching it, whether it's in the daytime, whether it's in the nighttime, it looks grand. It is packed. The Eiffel Tower, you really can't ask for a better venue and a better setup. And I think the volleyball's been stellar.
Yeah.
I think the volleyball's been super high level. I think a couple nerves, some of the early matches for a couple teams finding their rhythm, but to be expected.
Yep.
A lot of first timers at the Olympics this year. But man, I can't. I'm so excited every night waking up knowing there's going to be more volleyball the next day. And
Have you been getting on the early watching train?
The early replays for a lot of these.
Which, bless Peacock's heart.
Great.
I
Peacock.
love that you can just go back. It's super easy to navigate. Beach volleyball, replays,
Yes.
boom.
Shout out to Peacock, crushing
Love
it. And yeah, the 2, 3 a.m.s, not so much. Some of the 6 a.m. So I know you're an early riser. You've already written 2 stories before 5 a.m. Me, on the other hand, not so much. So I'm catching some of the early games, but this afternoon was watching a lot of volleyball. It's been great.
Me and Delaney were actually laughing because I've been just ripping through as many matches as I could. And then at night, we watched the prime time in Paris and catch up on the gymnastics, swimming, track, whatever. Yep. And Delaney was like, do you remember when you used to you only got whatever NBC chose for the 3-hour prime time?
Correct.
And I was like, man, we're blessed.
We're so spoiled. And to think about years and years of all these athletes in sports that we're not really getting to see unless you're some big time name or some famous team or something like that. There's a lot of athletes that we've missed the 4 years of the grind, and we don't get to see them really in the public, which is a bummer. So it is good. Technology is here, and the athletes get to benefit.
So now we get to see them all.
We get to see it all.
And to your point, I think as far as Olympic venue or just beach volleyball venue power rankings, Paris, #1. Everyone I've talked to says it's #1, and you know they mean it when they haven't won and they still say it. So Sophie Bukovic went 0 for 3, barbecued out. Congratulations for making it. She said favorite venue of all time. Kristen Nuss, she said it's already blown away any expectations.
So cool.
And like what an experience that we've had. Just saw LeBron cheering them on
so
in their
rad.
match. They met Steph Curry at the opening ceremonies, and so they're having a great time. And they've also said, everyone I talked to said it's the deepest sand they've ever played in.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Oh, okay, I haven't heard that yet.
So, because I was talking to Kristen, and she said it is deep, all caps.
Whoa.
And which is that's saying something because they train at Mango's, which is as deep as Hermosa, if not deeper.
Right.
And so for her to say it's deep, that's significant, which I think favors a skilled team like Kristen and Taryn, and doesn't do many favors to the teams who rely on physicality.
Correct.
Which I would have thought that would have affected Cuba, which we're going to get to shortly.
Yeah.
And it has not.
No, not so much.
And so we'll jump into Cuba in a minute. I want to give everyone a rundown where we're at. Pool A, Cherif and Ahmed of Qatar. We are going to get to them for sure. 3-0. They're marching on into the 9th place round. Sam Kodafava, Paolo Nicolai, 2-1. Also going into the 9th place rounds. The gnarliest lucky loser of all time. We're going to be touching on this as well. David Ahman, Jonatan Hellvig, they go 1-2. First time they've lost 2 straight matches since Ostrava of 2021, when they were 19 years old. They will be breaking pool, and someone's going to be unhappy with their draw.
Nightmare.
Pool B, Anders Mol, Christian Sorum, they are 2-0 at the moment. Steven Van de Velde, Matthew Immers, 1-1. Adrian Karambula, Alex Rangari, 1-1. The Grimalt cousins, 0-2. If the Grimalt beat... Gosh, I forget who they play. If the Grimalts win, if they beat Van de Velde and Immers, if they beat Adrian and Alex, then it could be kind of a mess to see who comes out of that pool.
Got it.
Pool C... Michal Brill, Bartosz Wojciak, they are 2-0. Nils Ehlers, Clemens Wickler, they are 2-0. That is going to come down to the head-to-head between the Aussies, Thomas Hodges, Zach Schubert, and French wildcards Remy Bassiero and Julian Lenille. The winner of that match breaks pool. They will likely start in the lucky loser, given their point and set differential. Pool D, Noslen Diaz and Jorge Alayo of Cuba, sensational, 3-0. Andy Benesh, Miles Partain got their mojo back. They were 2-1. They will start playoffs in the 9th place rounds. George Wanderley, Andre Loyola, likely in the lucky loser position. And Morocco, admirable efforts, went over. I said in the preview that they would win a set. And, man, they got close.
They got close.
Whew, they made me sweat it out. 28-26, Danny Miles. They go down 18-10. Didn't expect it to be a 28-26er.
Have you seen a team at this level in this kind of tournament give up an 18-10 lead before?
Not at this magnitude of tournament, but I did see Lithuania blow a 16-7 lead to Van de Velde and Immers in the Doha qualifier. Mm-hmm. And then I also watched Van de Velde and Immers blow the exact same lead to Anders and Christian in Ostrava, and then I watched Van de Velde and Immers also blow a 12-5 lead in the third set to Trev and Theo of the Guadalajara Challenge quarterfinals.
12-5 in the third.
But 18-10 18-10's a biggie.
It's a big number. And it was like, I was watching and I'm like, okay, like we're fine. We're going to side out. Oh, that's another error. Okay, that's another error. Oh, they're digging. And like Morocco, when they get a good ball, they're putting it away, you know.
I think they could qualify for an AVP.
They're for sure. They're athletic.
Yeah.
You know, they know how to play the game. They got a veteran on their team.
Yep.
But, you know, I think that little breakdown was just a sneak peek into where Miles and Andy were at that point in the tournament, in the mindset. And again, it's their first Olympics. It's so difficult to be there and be like, we're going to play this super high level volleyball like we've been doing no matter what. Who cares if it's Olympics? It's a normal tournament.
Yep.
Well, it isn't.
Right.
It isn't. It's easier said than done. So I think that was interesting little sneak peek into how they were feeling mentally, because you would just assume that they would just wipe those guys being up 18-10. And then again, it's great to see today how they've come out and just put their pedal to the metal, option game, left and right, 10 feet, 15 feet. Didn't matter where the ball was dug from Andy or passed. Miles was going to option, and it was a treat. It was great to see.
It was awesome to see.
Yes.
And so shout out to them. I got my Miles and Andy champagne chugging shirt from, I think this was from Ostrava, their first medal last year, and we will be talking about them a whole lot more because they got their mojo back, as Andy said. Evandro Arthur 2-0. Andre Perisic, David Schweiner also 2-0. Pool E going to come down as expected to a head-to-head between Julian Horrell and Alex Horst and Sam Schachter and Dan Deering. The winner of that will move on. Pool F is a bit of a mess. Stefan Bormans, York de Groot, Cruise Control have dusted up Spain and Chase and Miles. Chase and Miles are 1-1. They had a commanding sweep over France, fun to see, and then they got swept by Bormans and de Groot, and then you got Adrian Gavira, Pablo Herrera, also 1-1. For Chase and Miles to break pool, they can beat Spain. They can take a Bormans de Groot win over France, and they can also take a Bormans and de Groot loss to France, but if it's close. So they're like, I'm giving them a 99.9% chance.
Bormans de Groot are going to beat France.
Bormans de Groot.
For sure, regardless of what Chase and Miles do.
Yep.
Bormans de Groot look solid.
Very.
Yeah.
So that's your update of where we are at, what needs to happen for every team to break pool for those who still have to play. So, Kyle, I will throw it to you.
Sure.
Biggest storyline, most impressive, however you want to take it, of these Paris Olympic Games so far?
Yeah, I'd say for the men's side right now, the biggest storyline I have for me, we touched on it, is Sweden. Sweden taking third in pool. Nobody had that on their bingo card going into the Olympics here, I don't think, at all. And watching them play, again, we just talked about how the Olympics is another level, another intensity of the game. And what I see is a little bit of frustration from David Ahman defensively, not making a dig, or Jonatan not making the perfect set, and then kind of like slapping his legs, kind of putting his hands up, which we don't see too often from him. He's usually a little bit lighter. There's a very playful, carefree almost style of play that they have, I think. And so I just feel like they might have come in, easier to say that, to assume this, but maybe with a little expectation. Hey, we are the 1 seed. We should beat these teams. We should be doing well. We're gonna get first in pool, whatever that is. And you have to be confident coming to these events. It just seems there's some frustration on their side, and maybe some of the deep sand is playing into some of their lack of speed and being able to jump sit and get on some balls. But for me, that's the biggest storyline, is the number 1 team in the world who's been crushing it. 9 out of 10 finals, I think. 10 straight. Thank you. 10 straight. And yeah, I think we're just so shocked because we're so accustomed to seeing them just beat everybody.
Yes. So they had come into this Paris Olympic Games, 10 straight finals, had won 18 straight matches, were 29-2 on the year, and now they're 1-2 for the tournament. And even their first match, which I think that Mark Nicolaitis and Isaac Carricker, one, it's kind of a bummer that you get the 1 seed and you have the hardest pool by far, because Isaac and Mark, that's a strong 4.
Yes.
And even they went 21-19 with them. But this has happened before, where a team has gone 1-2 in pool play, barely scraped out of the lucky loser, went on to win a silver medal. That was Paolo Nicolai and Daniele Lupo in Rio. I would not be surprised in the least to see that happen again. Yeah. But we've never seen Sweden struggle like this.
Correct.
Where, like I said, they have 2 losses the entire season. One of those came in the finals of Doha.
That's so crazy.
Another came in pool play, where they went and recovered and won the tournament anyway. And so it's going to be a very interesting peek into their mental makeup.
Yes.
What are we made of? Because these lucky losers are going to be dangerous. George and Andre probably going to be in the lucky loser. So you might have a lucky loser that is a rematch of the Topeka Elite 16 finals and a rematch of the Stade Elite 16 finals. That's what's possible.
Which is crazy. It's wild.
Nuts.
Yeah.
So Sweden, I think, easily the number 1. So just the shock value of it.
The shock value.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, you have these other teams and lucky losers that you never want to see Sweden in there. And it's going to be a real test to see how they look in this next game. What are they made of? Granted, they are young. It is their first Olympics ever. We're going to see them for a very long time to come. But now we get to really see how's that time in between games? What does that conversation look like? How do you come out and play immediately? Give us a peek into that mental state in the coach and Razzie, and how they're going to dissect and fix this, which I'm betting that they will.
I don't bet against Norway.
Yeah.
Not going to bet against Sweden. I've reached that point. Don't bet against Ahman and Hellvig. What I'm curious to see if there are any teams currently sitting 2-0 in pool play who are like, we'll drop this one.
Ooh.
Because the only way you're getting Sweden in the first round is if you take the top seed in pool.
You take the top seed.
Because right now you have the lucky losers will feed into the winners of the lucky losers will feed into the number 1 from Pool A, which is Qatar, or the number 1 from Pool B, which is Norway. And so we could have a Sweden-Norway 9th place match. We could have a Sweden-Qatar 9th place match, which it would be a bummer in both scenarios.
I mean, the Beach Pro Tour athletes know how to manipulate a little bit the wins and losses.
They know the math.
They've played challengers before, so they know some matches matter and some matches don't. So will they use that strategy? It's hard for me to believe that someone would intentionally in the Olympics.
Not in the Olympics. I can't see it happening in the Olympics.
I don't see it happening.
No. You stand out in front of 12,000 people in front of that venue on this stage. I don't think anybody's actually doing that.
No, I don't think so. Which is good.
Yeah, which is good.
That's what we want. We want them to play.
And that's why. So this came up actually a number of times. So the point system, you get 2 points for a win, you get 1 point for a loss, and people were wondering, why do you get points for a loss? It's to de-incentivize forfeits. Forfeits, you get 0.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So as long as you play, you still get your point, and that's the reason for that. A lot of people were wondering.
Good to know.
My number 1 storyline.
Yep.
Cuba.
So
Cuba goes down 11-16 to Miles Partain and Andy Benesh. And they had never taken a set off Miles and Andy. They were 0 for 2 in the matches, 0 for 4 in their sets. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. Andy and Miles got it. 8-0 run. Jorge Alayo just block, ends up blocking Miles Partain 7 times, currently leading the field in blocks. He has 18 in 6 sets, so averaging 3 per set, which is crazy. Had another 8 in their next match against Brazil. And so they dust up Andy and Miles. So ever since they came back from that 16-11 run, ended up winning that, smacked around Miles and Andy in the second set, smacked around George and Andre, and then handled Morocco as expected. And a lot of people are saying, Cuba? Where'd they come from? Because there's a lot of new viewers for the Olympics.
For sure. There you go.
Does this surprise you at all to see this from Cuba?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And we've seen greatness from them. They've had some amazing tournaments, and they've begun to piece together what was lacking is the IQ volleyball on their side and the small touches, which has gotten cleaned up. And Noslen's been running more tempo, which he's been doing for most of the season. But they've had big moments this season. And I think they've battle ready. They've begun battle tested, battle ready. So they're ready for this. They took a little break before the Olympics. They missed a couple tournaments. But it doesn't matter because they're still crushing it right now, and they look phenomenal. And yeah, again, for viewers who haven't seen them play, you need to go back and watch some of their matches. Guadalajara, they were phenomenal.
They made the finals of Sakurima. Ended up losing a really good match to George and Andre. Made the finals of Starya Blanki. Lost in a very good final to the Czech Republic. Both of those went to 3. And you go through the Czech Republic, that's the world champs. That's enough said.
Yeah, exactly.
And what surprises me is that given how deep the sand is, I would have thought that Alayo would have been impacted because he hits as hard as he can every time.
That's correct.
And he's very reliant on being explosive, and he doesn't seem to be impacted in the least.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Oh, blocking. I'm only 6'6". Maybe I'm not going to jump as high in this deep sand. No, I'm going to block you 7 times in a row or whatever it is, and average 3 blocks per set. It's phenomenal. And whatever they're doing mentally in the film sessions, and they've really dialed in their technique and his hand placement. Again, he's been blocking phenomenal all year. Like, if you haven't seen, go watch. But to do it here on this stage, again, first Olympics, these guys are young. 22, 23?
They're 22 and 21.
22 and 21. That's unbelievable.
And the Swedes are 22 years old each.
Right. So you got a bunch of young athletes out here. And so, again, this is a good test to see which of these teams can come back mentally. Some of these losses mean more than others. Some of these wins are easier or harder, and Sweden's struggling, and so Cuba is dominating. So is Cuba going to keep that same rhythm and momentum going into the playoff round? Is Sweden going to be able to switch it up and bring it back to their side? We'll see. What are 21 and 22-year-olds capable of? I mean, we're learning a lot about this Olympics, which I'm kind of thinking. I'm looking at this Olympics, and this is the Olympics of the nerds, is the way I see it. Like all these gymnasts and swimmers, these Gen Z guys who are geniuses and have multiple jobs, and they're all really smart, and they're kind of nerds, and it's great, and I love it. It's different. I just feel like it's a younger generation coming through this Olympics, and it's not what we're used to seeing, and I think it's great.
And especially, I was thinking about this earlier too, because you go back to '96, and it was a very elderly final. You had Karchen Kent and Dodden Whitmarsh. And now we have a lot of young bucks. We just mentioned the youth of Ahman Hellvig, the youth of Cuba. You got Miles Partain, who's just 22. Jorg de Groot is young. Stefan Bormans is young. There are a lot. Matthew Immers, very young as well. Got a lot of young talent that, I mean, even Anders Mol and Christian Storm, they seem like they're about 40 because they've been winning everything for so long. It's like, wait, you're 26?
Yeah, they're still really young.
Get out of here.
They're still really young. They've been around so long, winning everything. No, they're still just young men.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what they're made of. Can Cuba sustain it? Can Sweden recover? Storyline number 3, I'll throw it back to you, Kyle.
Okay.
Anything else jump out to you thus far?
Well, I think Qatar.
Yes.
I think Qatar is going 3-0. They have been hot and cold this year. If you've been watching the Beach Pro Tour, they've had not a ton of medals this year, to say the least. I don't know, any medals this year?
No. I don't think they've been on the podium this year. They got close to making a semi in Stade. We're up 11-9 in the third on Anders Mol Christian Storm. Couldn't close it.
And that is what I had felt because we were at Stade, which was awesome. And seeing them play, I was like, oh, these guys are starting to play good. Stade, they looked really good. They looked fiery. They looked dynamic. Ahmed's one of the fastest defenders that we have in the game.
He touches everything.
Everything. You can't really shoot too many balls on him because he's going to touch it. And so when I saw them play, I'm like, oh, they're getting primed here for Olympics. So I kind of expected them to do well this tournament, but this is better than good now for them, 3-0. And it's just like they've been here before. They've taken bronze in Tokyo. They know how to play at these big moments, and that is an advantage, I think, for them.
And I think there's this intangible of guys who can play in front of a crowd. Cherif Younousse can play in front of a crowd. That dude gets it. Yeah. He's just an entertainer. You look at the Cherifs, I think Chase Budinger with his NBA background knows how to play in front of a crowd. Anders and Christian obviously don't mind a crowd. Jorge Alayo loves a crowd. That boy, man, he's in warm-ups. He'll hit it and be like, hey, what's up?
I mean, I don't know how he expends so much energy screaming. As a blocker, I sympathize, but like so much energy screaming after points and then getting back to the game. It's like, oh my gosh, it's already hot there. Maybe you conserve a little of that energy, but no, not a problem.
No problem.
Not a problem for him.
Now, what surprises me, you mentioned that a little bit surprising to see this from Qatar, and I'm more surprised, I think, than most because in Vienna, they barbecued completely.
Right.
They went 0-3 in pool play. So they played well in Stade, barbecue out of Vienna, and Vienna was just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And now you come out and, you go down 12-7 in the second to Sweden after losing the first, and you come back, then you win 20-18 in the third against a team on 10 straight finals and 18 matches in a row. Then you sweep Paolo Nicolai and Sam Kotofava, a very good team.
Who's playing well right now.
And then you handle Mark Nicolaitis and Isaac Carricker. We've talked about a very good team.
Yep.
And I'm surprised by the level of their play, but like you said, I think that there is something to be said for big tournament experience. They've won a bronze medal at the Olympic Games. They play well at the World Championships. They play well at the World Tour Finals every other year. And, Matt, they are tough to beat right now. Yeah,
they're phenomenal. There's no side court games here in the Olympics. No limited fans on the side court where you have to bring your own energy.
Yep.
No, the stadium is rocking.
You got 12,000.
You got 12,000 just ready to go cheering. And when France plays, it's like so rad. They're cheering for every touch. It is epic.
Yep. And another testament to defense travels. Ahmed Tijan, number 1 in digs for the tournament at 28. Cherif, number 4 in blocks at 13. So defense wins championships, folks.
There you go.
It's a cliche for a reason.
There you go.
My last major storyline, my boys, Andy Benesh, Miles Partain. So to me, Kyle, they have not looked themselves since they last won a silver medal at the Montreal Elite 16.
Yeah.
This year, they haven't been jump setting, haven't been optioning. We watched them in Stade, and it was like the ghosts of Andy and Miles were kind of wandering around on the court.
Sure.
They existed,
yes,
but they're like the personality, the passion, it just wasn't there. And then they have that somewhat disastrous collapse against Morocco, narrowly avoided going 3.
Yep.
Who knows what happens if you go 3?
Don't want to go 3.
You might not break pool.
And
then they come out, and when I watched them this morning against George and Andre, it was like a team reborn.
Yeah.
And you got Miles optioning, fading away 15 feet off the net from the right. He's doing slide options from the left. They're jump setting everything again. Andy's bombing away from the service line. Even Miles, who's not an aggressive server, serving well. So now Andy's leading the tournament in aces. Miles is number 3 in aces. And they just looked like themselves again.
Yep.
And I loved seeing it. I was almost emotional this morning because I was like, because Andy and Miles, I'm really close with both of them. Miles lived with us for a little while. Yep. Andy's been one of our best friends. Delaney and Deanna are very close.
Yep.
And so I was fired up just to see them get back to playing what got them here.
Yep.
Because this was the style of play that got them here when they were beating Anders and Christian twice in Stade.
Twice.
Winning a gold medal.
One tournament twice.
Winning a bronze out of the qualifier in Ostrava, and then boom, you make back-to-back Elite 16 medals. You pretty much clinch up your Olympic spot. I don't know what happened, why they went away from it.
Right.
But then maybe that Morocco thing was one of the best things that could have happened to them because they hit the emergency switch, and they're like, let's just go back to what makes us so great.
Yeah.
And they win 15-8 in the third.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. I had a similar feeling this morning watching their game or rewatching their game. I wasn't up early. Sorry, boys. Love you. But but it was like a breath of fresh air actually watching them play. There was joy again. There was emotion again. In Stade, like you said, it looked like a grind. And the season is a grind. A lot of athletes will tell you that it is a grind throughout the year. And how do you battle the ups and downs? You're going to get beat bad. And then how do you come back and how do you battle? It just seemed like there was a little lack of joy from them, a little... not on the same page on the court. There was some, the closeness and what brought them to this point had faded. The honeymoon phase obviously had faded, and now they had come into this place where, okay, maybe we should be doing better than we are, and what is the problem, and is it on the court, is it off the court? So, like you said, the Mojo, or Andy said, the Mojo is back.
Yep.
The boys are back. They looked like they had fun today. And they took risks, they took chances. Andy's been tentative, I think, with his serve in the past, and it is such a weapon. His hybrid is so deadly, as Marlo was calling it, a float serve. And I was like, no, it's a hybrid, but that's okay. Oh yeah, and not a problem.
Not his worst mistake.
Not his worst mistake. But it is great to see them back, and I think Brazil played okay. I didn't think Brazil played phenomenal volleyball. Right. And so, again, credit for Andy Miles to step on their throat and take it to them. It's easy. Brazil is a phenomenal team. They're one of the best teams in the world. I mean, they're one of my dark horses for this event.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to see them on the other side of the net. But, again, Andy Miles, optioning, jump setting, just doing what they did to make it to this point, their foundation, what their core is. And so, like you said, that's a good peek into where they are now. Whatever happened in Morocco, it was a blessing. Maybe not think of that at the time, but it was a blessing.
Yep. And what I absolutely love, so Lee Feinswag, shout out, Volleyball Mag editor, publisher, he's down on the sand and indoors. He's doing everything. And so he asked him, I sent him a couple questions to ask him. And Miles says, I'm so proud of how we played in the second set. And Andy says the same thing. I'm so proud of how we played in the second set. The one they lost, 21-14, because they stuck to their guns. Wow. And they stayed with the foundation that they've been built on, and they know that if they stay that way, eventually they're going to regress to the mean. And Miles has that dry wit, and I could just hear that little smile and wink in his voice where he's just like, I love that second set. Because we stayed with it.
I didn't know that.
And I think, and we talked about this, listening to the broadcast, and they were wondering, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Why are they out? Like, why is Miles doing this? You got to set the ball. And I go back to what Andy told me at the beginning of the year when they were talking about their system, and they get in fights over setting the ball. Miles is like, no, I want you to hit it. You hit this one. And Andy's like, no, I want you to hit it. So I'm going to pass the feed option. Yeah. And the comparison I made is Steve Kerr isn't going to tell Steph Curry to stop shooting. Right. He's going to take some questionable shots, but he's the greatest shooter who's ever lived. And I think Miles Partain is one of the greatest on-two players who's ever lived, right up there with David Ahman right now.
Yep.
And you don't tell Evandro to stop jump serving. You don't tell Steph Curry to stop shooting. You don't tell Kobe to stop shooting. You don't tell Tiger Woods to put the driver away.
Yep.
You let the big dogs eat. And Miles is eating, Andy's eating, and it's not, now at the Olympics, it's such a high level where they could very well lose their next match. It's going to be a high-level ninth place match, but I think if they play like this, that's the team that's a medal contender.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It looked, again, like a different team today, and when Miles has that green light and the support from Andy, like, hey, go ahead and hit that another option. Go ahead and do another one. Yeah. Like, wow, like what a feeling of relief and trust that Miles now gets from his partner. Maybe that was lacking before. Maybe there was a little bit of mistrust, or maybe we wanted to shy away from the option because Andy wasn't passing the ball great, or whatever it was. But to hear them both say that they loved set number 2, the set that they lost, tells me that they're on the same page. They're supporting each other. There's a ton of trust. And like when you have that going into matches, man, anything can happen. And
yep.
Like you said, I want to see Miles hit all the balls because as a defense, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I don't know what you're supposed to do all the time, because George was sitting in the middle a lot near the end of the match. He was shifting. He was sitting in the middle and still not able to, he got some, of course, but still not able to get some of these balls that Miles is optioning. And so it is an absolute nightmare to play against option offense. And so if they can consistently keep it going, Miles is going to start setting a few more balls, and he's going to start passing a ball a bit better. And like, they're going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. And just to address something that came up on the broadcast. So early in the first set, Dane Blanton dropped kind of the bombshell that Andy and Miles were moving on from Mike Playcheck, their coach, in the middle of the Olympics. Lee asked Andy for comment afterwards, and Andy said, we're just focusing on our next match. That's all I know.
Yeah.
That's all I've heard from Miles and Andy. So I'm not going to speculate, but it does seem that there has been a shift in something.
Something changed.
And whatever the shift is, Miles and Andy were better on the court today because of it. So I don't know if Mike is still with the team.
Right.
I don't know what the deal is there. But it's an interesting...
It is wild.
It gets wild.
It was a wild statement during the broadcast. And like you said, our takeaway, all we can take away is what we see on the court. And what we see, or what we saw today from them, is a focused, a trusting, a confident team on the court. And so if something did change at the moment, it seems like it was a change for the better.
Yep.
So that's all we know.
Yeah. So Andy Miles, number 2 seed in that pool, moving on into the 9th place rounds. Good for them. Kyle, those are all the notes that I have. Do you have anything else you want to add on the men's side?
No, that's it.
Boom. We're going to recycle this right around. We're going to get to the women.
Yes, Shoots.